Okay, I'm Michael Johansson. I work at a small university in the southern part of Sweden, Johansson University. I'm an associate professor in design and been doing research in the beginning about space and virtuality, and now I'm in the field of human and computational imagination. So in this project we see if we can help people imagine their common future in better ways. So this is an ongoing project. We're in the third year, I think, and it will continue for several more years. And we're looking to different areas. Now we're into mobility and how people move with cars, bicycles, buses, and all of that. And in that project we have created a lot of interesting stories. But I will go back and talk about this project here. It's a part of the city of Kristianstad called Näsby. And I don't know if you know that in Sweden we have about 50 no-go zones. So we have in those zones daily shootings, explosions, and of course a lot of drugs. So this is such a part of the city. So since I spent a lot of time there, I know how to sort of move in this part of the city and what to avoid. The city of Kristianstad will build a sort of an extension of this part of the city, and therefore they asked us if we could involve the people who are living there in better ways and find a model for participation to better match and involve people in the planning process of this new part of the city of Kristianstad. It got funded by the city of Kristianstad, EU, and also the university have invested in this. And we started it just when the pandemic started. So we need, since in the project description we needed to work with people and how to do this. So we spent some months thinking about how to do it, and at the same time we were 4 people involved in the 2 that work with more of the data and look into organizational things. So they could gather a lot of background material for us. And then we started, it became spring, and we started to be able to be outside. And then we said maybe we could walk with people in this area. And then we wanted to, and as you see and as I talk, this is also part of some methodological development that we have done to sort of create this method. It's not unique in any way, but I think the outcome of it has been valuable both for us, but also for the people then who use our material in the end. So what we did was to approach a person we knew in this area of the city, and we took a walk with her for 1 hour. And the instruction was that take us through your everyday environment and talk about your fear and hopes and things that you are occupied by or think of when you move in this area. And then this was recorded. There are some, when we copied it into the machine, there was not enough space. So if some of the pictures there are arrows in them, it's not in the pictures, it's actually from the hard drive here. No picture at all. It's a bit boring. destroyed. And then after this walk, we asked her, can you introduce 2 new people for us? And then we contacted them, and then we took walks with those 2. And they then introduced each 2 new persons. And suddenly we sort of moved in to this area. And we didn't choose who to meet at all. So it was not by random, but it was that people knew someone that could be interested in this kind of project. So we spent about a year. I think we did, let's say, about 46 walks. We used, I think, 21 of them. And in this part of Kristianstad there are, I think it's about 45 different nationalities. So it's a very diverse area of the city. And also our university is in the outskirts of this area. What we also wanted to, since we have the statistics, we have the data, we have what the city is communicating about themselves and about this part of the city, we have all that information. We didn't want to capture any general or any universal information about the city. We want to have the particular things from particular people. And we hope to find as diverse material as possible. And also material that was very contradictory. So after the first year, we gathered all the recordings. We used some software to have it written out, and then me and my colleague Kari, we started to work with the text and extract the most important things that did not too much overlap each other. So we tried to find not the extremes, but relative things from all these walks that we made in this area. And after that, we sent it to a journalist and said to the journalist that create the question. You create the question, and the answer is here. And write it with your own words, as you written it down as a journalist. So now we're moving in more into fiction here. So we try to make the text more interesting, more, I will not say extreme, but a bit accelerated. And then we finish them. And then we printed, we have 2 reports here. You can look into them. These are also including all the science in this project. This is not what I'm talking about today. I'm talking about this method. In Swedish it's called vandra med andra. It's like walking with other people.
It's nice.
And this is from the pre-workshop material. So we then sent the text out to people voluntarily handwriting this for us. Because it did not look good if it was printed, because then it was official material. Now it looks like it's a person who has done this, but it's not. It's heavily constructed, based on what people express about their city. I can pass it around. Yeah. It's in English, so we have one in Arabic, one in English, and one in Swedish.
Arabic?
And they are,
But you didn't mind.
a huge Arabic community in this city park. So they are actually, you can go to the library and sit down and look in these.
A proposal, we can place it in our library here for people interested.
Yeah, and I will put the reports also so you can have a look. The idea then was to use these statements and the imagery in workshops with people. So they prepare, coming to a workshop, reading, let's say, these 21, it's the format we have now, these 21 vignettes about the place where they live. and see if they recognize themselves, if they disagree. So they can be a bit impregnated or prepared to discuss with not only themselves as a reference, but they know a bit more what others expressed about this area. And then use the material here as points of discussion. So they are actually made to raise discussion around certain experience and topics that is in this book. And the pictures are just randomly put there, but people think there is a connection, and they find connections, which is interesting. So having this kind of openness also raises new ideas for them, what we mean with this. And in the workshops they are actually numbered, so then you can refer to them as in vignette 18. I fully understand what is expressed there, and then they can tell their story in relation to that, where it differs and where it's the same. So that's where we are with this project, and there has come out some findings that I think is relevant to talk about. This project was very much about not only adding this new part of the city, but also to have people consider what sustainability is, and if they can contribute to sustainability. And one finding here is that sustainability not even on the top 5 of important needs for the interviewed citizens. So they don't bother that much about sustainability at all. So I wonder, when this is forced upon them, what will happen? If they're going to be educated, so to say, or formatted in a certain manner.
Exactly.
Because there are more relevant things for them. It's a very poor area also.
What have been the top 5 for them?
Getting a car, maybe.
Okay.
Have your kids in a good school. Yeah.
These things.
Yeah.
Survival in wider sense.
A bigger apartment.
Yeah.
If you are 10 people living in a two-room apartment. Number 2 is citizen express a different view on the city and how it is to use and experience it. In many areas it contradicts the official image of the city. There seems to be one city that is lived and one city that is administrated and planned. 3, citizen statements are too messy and or contradictory, therefore hard to use in bringing decisions forward. So there is a lack of process, and of course in design and even in architecture, the process of creating something is extremely important. And there you go beyond statement and words, because you have to build a gestalt of what kind of future we want. And we want to discuss that, not the idea. The consequences of that idea, that we can discuss. So there is a process, and this process often is lacking. Because you collect statements on post-it notes, and then you try to convert it into a city part. It's not a good idea. 4, in the city of Kristianstad, there is no communicated model for how participation, activities and outcomes are processed and what impact it actually have on the planning process. So this is what I raised before, that people don't know what they contribute into. Why should I attend this workshop? You don't care in the end anyways. You just build. We had some successes, and there are some similar projects that have been even more successful than we, in informing the citizens on democratic processes and procedures. So people actually understand more how to involve themselves on a more, not in workshops like this with the new city park, but to understand how a democratic system works. because maybe they come from a place where there is no democracy at all. So they need to know these things, and also to know the difference if a street light doesn't work, and if I want to change which school your kid should attend, for example, if you can have an influence on that. And also that, number 6, in technology and cultural collaboration project, Creative Europe and Horizon, I've been part of several of them. Technology development and cultural processes and expressions almost never have any impact on the actual collections. Academics in the area of technology, the outcome from them is scientific papers for conferences. And for artists, it's work and some money. So no one is actually interested. And here we have the Commedia dell'arte again. We play, we have a space in society where we play democracy. And then democracy runs its own course through rules and regulations. And they will never interfere. So I wonder why we do this. If it has so little impact, and why EU spends so much money on it. So that is what I have to say.
Very good. Many thanks, Michael.
Would you say it's kind of democratic tranquilizer to? I mean,
yeah, absolutely. We have talked about planning for the unplanned, where you have parts in the city where you have all the certificates. You can do whatever. You have all the lawful things that. So anything that is a good idea, you can just do it. You don't have to wait 5 years. You have all the permits. But yeah, City of Johansson is not interested in that because it's a waste of money, and we need to find a developer. And so there are these processes that really runs its own courses inside of democracy. It's quite convenient, I think.
How many nations you reached for your walkings?
I think, let's say 16.
Fine.
Yeah.
And how the people reacted? How the people reacted as they invited, who walked with you? So that they really
I think
interested,
everyone was very generous and deeply participated, and found it interesting that other people paid attention to it. And they decided what to talk about and where to go, and so we had no script.
But imagine then the outcome you mentioned, and then it's not considered what they did. What?
Yeah.
What?
And we was very clear that we cannot help you in any way. What you hand over to us, it will have no influence of this city at all.
And they were generous at this point then?
Yeah.
This is interesting. Please.
Talked about the difficult areas with gated communities, kind of. How did they build up on the first hand, and isn't that something to consider in concepts to improve the situation? I mean, usually it's like people move out and the low income people or foreigners or so that cannot afford it move in and things like that. We have that in France very, very strongly and stuff.
But
so, yes,
if you look deeply into the data here in this area called Näsby, Gamlegården, here you actually have 30% of the apartments is like a stream of people moving all the time. So they are in transit. But the other 70% actually like to live there and stay there for a very long time. So they have built sort of a strong community, even though the conditions are not that good. But as you see, this is from the area with these lots, and so nature is very close by here. It takes you 5 minutes to just walk into wild forest. So there are many people with dogs that likes to live here.
Just,
Yeah.
I'm not sure that I understood correctly. So you made all these walks, you listened to them, and you couldn't use anything of that what they said?
Yeah, we used it in
You
making
used it.
these stories.
Making
Yeah.
the stories, but not in the planning of the online.
No, what we did then, and this was completely rejected by the city. We actually had a 5-step model for aggregating people's ideas into. We actually had a full design process with both a bottom-up perspective and a top-down. And then if the politician wanted to realize an idea, they can put it in there, and then they could see if people were interested in being part of realizing that idea. And also people could by themselves put ideas out, and then the city could look at the ideas and say, this is something we actually want to do. Can we gather you who are interested in this, and we can make a project together? This was completely rejected, and we even implemented a GIS system for this. An open GIS system in 5 layers that we thought were quite inventive and with open data and everything. But no, they say we get outside of the law and it be too complicated.
Ja, aber then the things are remaining as they are. No?
Yeah.
The commit after will happen, but the things remaining as they are.
Yes.
Essentially, the existing power system, the existing systemic resilience remains unchanged.
But till our surprise, then the city came back to us and said, "We want to do another project with you."
Please, please, please.
Oh, I was just going to say, I mean, there's so much about this project that is really fascinating, and I'm a literary historian, so just that idea of like the way that you're sort of juxtaposing like the stories and then writing them down, attaching them to images that are not necessarily attached, and kind of seeing what meaning people bring to it. I think that's just really fascinating. But I guess just one question I have, and maybe you said this, I'm very jet lagged, so forgive me if I missed it, but totally aside from architecture, it seemed like we've been talking so much about communities and trying to go beyond like this fracturing into like, you know, communities built on particular identities. How do we get past that? How do we, it seems to me like there's something so beautiful, right, in this idea of like you went and you started out with a walk and a conversation with one person, and then through that, then you're connected to 2 more people, and then through that, and people that you would never otherwise encounter. So I'm just wondering if you've thought about just sort of other ways in which this could be implemented that are not necessarily about architecture or city planning.
Maybe, yes. But now we're using it we are creating something that has the work name travel stories, because we are looking into this is a poor area. Now we are also still here in this area, but we also look at one of the richest areas outside of the Kristianstad is nearby the sea, and there is a city called Aarhus, so we look into this Aarhus place as well. And the whole commune of Kristianstad is widespread, a lot of small villages. The public transport is extremely hard because there are so many small roads, so it's not sufficient to have public transport. So people are commuting a lot with cars, especially if you start early in the morning. And if planning looks into this, they look at the sort of A to B situation and where people are and how they use different kind of transportation. And of course we started in that. We have all the statistics, and we started our interviews with these people, and we thought we will drive around with them or commute with them, but we have not done that. We actually meet them, and they lay out their traveling patterns on maps. And then what actually came out is that people are not thinking of going from A to B, some of them, but they actually do very valuable things in going from A to B that is easily forgotten. There are there were two sisters. We interviewed one of the sisters. She works at one of the hotels. She starts very early in the morning. She needs to get her daughter to daycare and then travel 45 minutes with car to the hotel. Her sister is in another part of Sweden. She also starts early in the morning. And every day after they leave their kids, they talk in the car because they never meet. So if you put her on public transport, she will not meet her sister because you cannot sit and talk like that privately in a bus. So we try to find these qualities of how we move around and why it's important for us and what it facilitates, so we don't forget these things. To just think rational about it, we can solve it easily, but then maybe some qualities of life will disappear. And there is one guy who said, he has 2 teenage daughters, he said, I just want to get one of them in the car and we can drive wherever, so I have time to talk to her.
That's universal.
Because if she's in the car, she cannot escape. So that is also the use of a car.
I was struck so much about what you showed and what Barbara showed about the park in Rome. And I guess one word we didn't use there, and you didn't mention it specifically here, is about mentoring and this sense of belonging. And you showed a couple of times, obviously, that this slide in particular, about when you see graffiti and the similarity as to the trash in the park in Rome. What does that say about, do you care about the sense of place and space you belong? And I think about mentoring, because I love these 2 quotes right here, is what subjects do we need to study to become this or that? There are a number of us who help out, including a physicist, a pharmacist, and a medical student.
It's in the Somalia community. They have a really good evening school where the people with university degrees come several times a week to teach so they can pass for university.
That's great.
Wow.
After you conduct these walks and interviews, what is then the suggestion or the outcome of that? Is there anything tangible, or it all remains on a proposal stage?
We made this 5-step model that is in the report. I can show you. There's also a nice image of all the walks we did on a map. So we know that we covered most of the areas.
By way of the Google kind of thing?
Yeah.
You know, GPS?
Yeah.
Places.
Here is the model. And it's elaborated more in the presentation. But we have the suggestion level, the collaboration level, the project level, the co-creation level, and the realization level. So there is.
This has all been rejected by the city.
Yeah, but they want to follow the law to do it easily, and then they work with architectural firms who knows all about this.
Business as usual.
Yeah. And what we found out was that the city do a lot of interviews with people, but the answers are, you cannot use them for anything because they don't say anything. It's more like, we have to do this activity, we don't care what people answer, and then we hand it in, and we put it in an archive. There were 18 participants, and it's never used for anything, because they don't know what to ask for.
Yeah.
It refers to this was the background of my question. It refers to an evergreen, one evergreen out of several others we had today in the discussion throughout. This is this Cognita Latte effect, or formulated more precise in academic terms, it's about systemic resilience. What we do with systemic resilience. How to tackle this? It's a question.
What's resilience versus hopelessness? Those are the polar opposites. The hopeless people are the ones doing graffiti. The resilience people are the one that says, how do I meet a pharmacist, a chemist, to help me get beyond this part? And mediating those two polar extremes seems very important.
Yeah. And also that there is a park in this area. There are several parks. There is a lot of nature and in this area. And in the park, in springtime and summertime, people meet there and barbecuing, and it's a very nice place. And the soundscape there is fantastic. You can hear so many languages. But they want to have more vegetation. And then vegetation in that area is where you hide weapons and drugs. So they cannot have it. So they actually removed all of that. And then it's not that pleasant to be there. Because just it's an open field. It's of course a green grass, but nothing more. And the people who is not doing drugs and shoot each other, they are very disappointed why a few people should decide how this place is created.
That's a good question.
You said you created a GIS. Was it for participation also?
Yeah,
so
it was
people
for
could really. So it was a web GIS, and
yeah.
people could also.
The city of Johansson has a very sort of very good GIS head of that department, and they recently, when we came in, made an open system to report about the quality of the infrastructure of bicycle lanes. So you can actually say this spot is dangerous. Here is, if your kids will go here, there are traffic here, so be aware. So it was a way for reporting the quality, because they are not redesigning, but they are now, with the idea of more bicycles, try to change the city. And this is the new project we are going to do further on, to do this kind of loop through the city and build it around certain atmospheres and experiences. Also to at nighttime built in that you feel secure moving into the city if you follow this. And of course, we don't know how this will look like in the end. It will be a process.
And it will be realized by the city? Or
I hope so. I hope so. We never know. But, I'm not in. If I say I'm not in it for the realization, I'm in it for the good ideas, actually.
Yes. You mentioned that there are some 45 nationalities or races. They are speaking perhaps 45 languages. Now, I already asked this question from you, but the interviews was conducted
mostly in Swedish and in English.
In English. Does that mean that some of them at least spoke Swedish?
Yeah, but we in some of the interviews we made with a person who knew that language,
okay.
And then in English.
All right.
So it was translated in real time. Yes.
Right. How do they communicate? I wonder. The 45,
yeah.
Languages and so on.
I don't know.
If you would draw a personal resume of this project, all in all, how this resume could look like, as regards the original task, just to make a summary and say, okay, in the end, it was a project. How it would look like, your resume?
I think I'm looking forward a bit. I think we have the stamina to maintain our original intention here, that we will find ways to actually change how the city think of how these processes are conducted. And I hope that we will be, in the end, favorable in actually doing something based on these ideas, and then they can say, wow, it actually works. But I cannot say it will. But
It's a hope.
Yeah.
It's a hope. Okay.
So you don't quite feel yet hopeless?
No, absolutely not. And meeting all these people.
Right.
It's a blessing in that sense to
Yeah.
get to know a person during 1 hour,
Yeah.
and you get an insight into their
And it
experience of a
really
place.
seems to me that even that you and your team are attending to them, that gives them some kind of presence
Mm.
and self-recognition that somebody is paying attention to them.
There is a project in Stockholm called Walk and Talk, where they actually made walks together with citizens and discussed democratic processes. So therefore I said there were other projects that were more successful than us. And they enhanced the knowledge about this with 60%.
Wow. Who does the walk?
So there the outcome was not to change the city, but to have better understanding what the democracy is, how to participate in it. And I think if that could mature, we can also have more people demanding to be let in, to have an influence on it.
Who conducts the walks? Meaning volunteers or?
We did all the walks.
I mean in Stockholm.
I don't know. I don't know. I think it was the researchers themselves.
Right.
And there is also a new study from Stockholm that was quite interesting, since I'm interested in walking and what walking do with us when we walk and think us and talk to other people. They actually interviewed 300 people walking to their work.
Wow.
And what they found out, we can say that nature has a big impact on us. We think of nature as beautiful, and it's a good experience being in nature. But what they found out, if you're in a good architectural environment, it does the same to you. So even culture and the built environment can have that influence. And that is hopeful, I think, for all of you architects, that you can have that impact. And now it's in at least one research paper.
This is an important point, because this is an old hope, discussed, at least in the Occidental realm, discussed for centuries. A good architecture, and we had it today, a good architecture will influence human behavior in a positive way. The original idea is the Città Felice of the Renaissance. We do not have to change the human being. This is an utopian approach. Let's forget about it. We just have to build the right environment, and then we will have a happy city. And this is the idea. And I think this is essential when we are speaking about natural city, and not only about bringing nature into the city, but taking the nature of the human being as it is. Please.
Yeah, in that sense, what you said, I think you have really can do a lot by building nice areas or areas where people like to live good and can live good. But then it must be also not just one thing, not just one building that is improved, but it must be visible for several people, so that they really, because you need a certain area, as any art species need a certain area. It is not enough one building or 2 streets. It should be a little bit more, and better to improve this part correctly so that people can see it and feel fine, and then see, oh, maybe we could do that in our neighborhood as well. And they will change also, like collecting litter and things, because they see there it works. Why not where we are living?
This could be a very good practical direction, and this is the essential idea of the Gestalt Michael mentioned, of the expressed as architecture, of the architectural ensemble. Not just a single building as a Gestalt, but also an entire ensemble as a Gestalt in your direction.
But all the consideration we saw in your project that you of course think about.
It was also
an
area that was big enough to have an impact, I think.
I totally agree with you, and I think all these little projects and all their greatness could in some make a wave of change through.
If they are allowed, and this was one topic of our discussion. if they are not allowed in some way or the other of not allowing something, it's for the gutter. No? And this was this question today about the revolution and the decentralization. No? What if we could consider that we leave the idea of the central state and get friends with the idea of the decentralized community? We build our polis, our new cities, our community placements by ourselves, and that's it. What would happen then? It's a radical, different perspective from the central management, differing from the central management, from the central plan, from the Roman idea of the state. We leave all this behind. We go back to the polis, but recently as a decentralized community. And that's it, as an alternative.
But I want to follow up on that comment there, because I think that's a good one. Maybe the government does lip service and files this away, but is there a feeling of, by you asking these questions, is there an inspiration that perhaps these people can run for office and control their own destinies and be able to influence policies in the future? And similarly, to go back and analyze what is happening in their home countries, political upheaval, loss of resources that is causing them to emigrate to begin with at all. Because if you don't make the home country safe, and the waves of immigration happen here, and you can't control your own destiny, then we're bound to failure.
What's the education level of these people in as an average?
Quite low.
Quite low.
Yeah. But more and more of the second generation moves into go to university and.
Oh, really? Well, that's certainly promising.
All right. Do you have points? Also, I do not want to be.
I'm finished.
You're finished? Many thanks, Michael.